Today, we are going to review the book Thinking in Bets, Making Smarter Decisions When We Don't Have All the Facts. And before we move ahead, I want to point out that this book is not about poker strategy or gambling. The promise of this book is that thinking in bets will improve decision making throughout our lives. We can certainly get better at separating outcome quality from decision quality and discover the power of saying, I'm not sure. In this book review, first I'm going to talk about the author and then share 6 key takeaways that I gathered from the book. Now that said, let's get started. This book is written by Annie Duke. She is a professional poker player as well as a researcher, and over the past 20 years, she has won 3 championships and over $4 million in poker tournaments. Annie was born and brought up in United States, New Hampshire, where she attended the Columbia University and graduated with the degrees in English and psychology. Later, she went to the University of Pennsylvania for PhD, but ended up dropping out few days before finishing her final dissertation. After that, she got married and was settled in Montana, and thanks to her brother, who was also a poker player, she got introduced to the game of poker and she ended up choosing it as a life career. Now, the author shares few insights that how it feels like to be a poker player in the real world. So for a typical poker player, you get 2 minutes for a hand, and in those 2 minutes, you have to take up to 20 decisions. And these 20 decisions can make you help win or lose a game. And the only way to improve decision process is by taking smaller bets. According to author, there are only 2 things that determine an outcome of a bet. One is the quality of our decision. Second is our luck. Since the book is about improving the quality of our decision, we will be going to focus just on that and not the luck part. The first takeaway is life is poker and not chess, as chess contains no hidden information and very little luck compared to poker in contrast, which is a game of incomplete information. It is a game of decision making under conditions of uncertainty over time. The key idea shared in here is that as humans, sometimes we correlate our best decisions to a good result and our worst decision to a bad result. For example, one of the most controversial decisions in the Super Bowl history took place in the Super Bowl 49 in 2015. The Seattle Seahawks, with 26 seconds remaining and trailing by 4 points, had the ball at the 1-yard line. Everyone expected that the coach Pete Carroll to call for a handoff to running back Marshawn Lynch. Instead, he asked for a pass play. And later on, New England ended up intercepting the ball, winning the Super Bowl moments later. Now, what's interesting here is that according to statistics, there were 98% chances of completing that pass. But as the luck would have it, the outcome wasn't something that the Seattle fans were expecting. Now, Pete Carroll was a victim of our tendency to equate the quality of a decision with the quality of its outcome. And let's understand this better, as our brains weren't built for rationality. So the irrationality displayed by the Pete Carroll's critics should come as no surprise anyone who is familiar with the behavioral economics. So the idea here is that we recognize the existence of luck, but we resist the idea that despite our best efforts, sometimes things just might not go our way. So imagine a circle which is half filled with skill and half filled with luck. As humans, what we can do is we can try to fill that half of the circle with our skills and leave the rest of the half for the luck to play it out. If the luck would have it, we would get the results what we want, but if luck is not our way, we might be expecting something else, and we should be okay with it. Now, the author suggests that in order to get over this feeling and get over this uncertainty, what we can try to do is we can try to redefine what is wrong to us. And the author further explains that every bet is essentially an attempt to accurately represent our knowledge. In order to make a bet, we can start thinking it like, okay, we are testing our knowledge. So based on 0 to 100%, how accurate this knowledge is. Second, before making any bet, we can think in advance about all the possible alternative outcomes that can be true in that particular scenario. So what happens is when things go bad, we aren't wrong. We thought about all of these options. It just, some of these options just didn't go our way. Second takeaway is all decisions are bets and they are as good as our beliefs. Our traditional view of betting is very narrow and the definition of bet is much broader. This book emphasizes the broader and often overlooked aspect of betting, which is choice, profitability, risk, decision, and beliefs. The key idea shared here that whenever we make a choice, we are automatically rejecting every other possible choice and beliefs associated with it. Now let's take a look at how the belief system works. So one of the most common issues that we face as humans is whatever we hear, we think that is true. So if you look at the diagram, you will see that what we think and what happens in a reality are two different things. For instance, this is what we think happens. We think that we hear something, then we will go think and vet if the information is true or false, and then we will form a belief. But that is not something that happens in reality. The reality is when we hear something, we will form a belief, and later on, if we have some time, we'll go and think and vet the information if it's true or false. So according to author, we form beliefs in a very careless way. We believe all sorts of things we hear from random resources. And once we have heard all this information that is coming to us, we do not do any research. In a way, we are saying that whatever we hear is false. And by any chance, if you are thinking that you are much smarter than that, then you are probably thinking wrong again. Because as humans, we think that we are smarter than the other person. Let's look at this way that suppose you are having a conversation with one of your colleagues in your office, and it's so easy to point about their faults and their mistake that they have done, and it's so easy to give our feedback on that part. Because as humans, we are much better at recognizing biases in others. So the author recommends no matter what we do, we can't just change our mind and work differently no matter how smart we are. So essentially, the author is saying that we will always be blind to our self-biases, and whatever we are hearing is just not true. So in that situation, how are we supposed to make a decision when we are making wrong beliefs and when we think we are smarter than anyone else? That is possibly a wrong assumption. So in this scenario, the author recommends that we start thinking everything in a bet, because one a bet triggers us to engage that third step that we only sometimes get to do. Being asked if we are willing to bet money on anything makes it much more likely that we will go and examine our information. So next time, whenever we are saying something, we can think of it as a bet. And before predicting the outcome, what we can do is we can declare our uncertainty for that particular belief. And once we start doing that, we are more likely to recognize that there is always a degree of certainty in whatever we do. Here the author gives us a framework for thinking in bets. So we can accomplish that in two ways. One, whenever we say our beliefs, we can declare some sort of uncertainty in those beliefs. And whenever we are predicting a future outcome, we can express or at least think about the number of plausible alternatives and declaring what the range could be for those possible outcomes. So for instance, if somebody asks you by when will you be able to finish that work, then you can say something like this, that I'm 70% confident that I'll be able to finish it by today. Now, just by doing that, we are accomplishing two things. One, we are letting the person know about our uncertainty in that future. And also, we are declaring that how uncertain we are regarding that future. And this, in turn, is going to make us more believable as a communicator. The third takeaway is outcomes are feedback. Any decision, whether it's going for a walk or eating whatever we want, is a bet to create the most favorable future for us. The key idea shared here is that we always have the opportunity to learn from the way future unfolds, and it will improve our beliefs and decisions going forward. And the way this learning loop works is as outcomes go our way, figuring out whether these were caused mainly because of the luck or they were the predictable outcome of our skills can be of great value. And in this learning loop, by actively using outcomes to examine our beliefs and bets, closes this feedback loop, and this in turn will reduce the uncertainty of the future. Now, working backwards from the way things turn out isn't easy. We can get to the same outcome or we can get to the same result by taking different routes. And these outcomes don't tell us what our fault is and what isn't. They don't tell us what we should take credit for and what we should not take credit for. But regardless, blaming luck means we are missing the opportunity to examine our decisions and potentially learn from it and maybe not repeat that mistakes ever again. Now, in order to make this learning loop work, let's look at the habit first, and then we can decide where to place this loop. Any habit forming loop works like this. First, you will get a cue, and based on that cue, you will do a routine. and you will get a reward. Now, reward is the most interesting part of this loop because that is something that will generate the cue again. And in turn, this will shape into a habit. Now, in our particular context, the cue is always thinking about how awesome our decision making capabilities are. And a good outcome always triggers that cue. And the reward is always feeling good about ourselves. So, where we can make a difference, according to the book, is we can try to replace this old routine with a new one. So, let's say the old routine was to take some credit or giving blame each and every time we do something. Next time, what we can do is we can try to replace it with this learning loop where we take an outcome, bifurcate it further, whether it's because of the skill or it's because of the luck, and based on that learning, we can make another bet again. So we can replace that learning loop here in the routine section of the habit and try to make this a habit moving forward. Now, let's pause for a second and think about all of our worst outcomes that we have gone through in life. We all been there where we have wondered what might have gone wrong. And that path to finding that objective truth is so hard, especially when we just don't know and we are not ready to accept that outcome. And according to author, that path is very natural because it's very hard for everyone to find that truth first and then also accept that part. But the only way to get better at it is to bet more, and more on our beliefs. The idea of a bet makes us examine our beliefs and obviously refine them with the learning opportunity that we have. And the idea here is that these learnings over time compound to a being better decision maker in your life. Today, you might start small, but with a little bit of practice, patience, and preparation, your decision making progress will improve over time and this will bear fruits in the future. The next takeaway is it's easier to bet with a buddy system in place. Any of us who wants to get better at thinking in bets would definitely benefit from having a buddy in our lives. The main idea shared in here is that truth seeking equals helping each other overcome our blind spot biases. Having the help of others provide many decision making benefits, and one of the most obvious benefit is that others people can spot our errors better than we can. It's not like we can't find it on our own. It's just having a buddy makes it much more easier. So for example, in the movie Matrix, when the Neo goes with Morpheus offers him two pills. One is the blue pill, the other one is the red pill. And says, if you take the blue pill, you're gonna go ahead, sleep, wake up the next day and forget about whatever happened. But if you take the red pill, you'll get to know the truth. Again, what I'll be offering is just truth, nothing more. So just like the movie Matrix, what we also need in our life is a Morpheus who can offer us the truth. Now let's suppose that you have found that Morpheus in your life who's ready to work with you to seek the truth. So in the next part, the author recommends a blueprint for working within that group. And this blueprint is based on 3 points. 1, focus on accuracy over confirmation bias. 2, the accountability. And the third one is openness to diverse ideas. So let's get into each and every one of these points in details. So let's discuss the first point, which is rewarding accuracy. Let's imagine for a second that you are sitting in a group and slowly but surely you have started to share whatever the events that happen to you in your day-to-day life. Now what will happen is the more you share, the more group will reward you. And in turn, that reward will generate a good feeling in you. So what happens is when that good feeling starts happening with you, it's going to encourage you to share the truth, or at least the version of the truth that you think could be very helpful with the group. Now, what ultimately we are going to get at is once you start doing that often and often again, this will in turn become a habit. And you will be able to do it within your own when the group is not around. Most of the time, you will be on your own and there won't be any group to take a decision, but your habits that you have established with that group will help you to overcome your own biases and reward the accuracy even if nobody is around you. The next point is accountability, or a willingness to answer for our own actions or beliefs. So let's imagine for a second that you take a decision, and when you know that you have to share all the necessary and relative facts to a group, it's going to make you accountable. So next time, whenever you take a decision or whenever you think about a bet in the future, you're likely going to think about all of these things because you will have to share this with that group. So this accountability will help you to come up with a better bet and improve your decision making process over time. The third point is diverse perspectives. So others aren't wrapped up in our perspective or our narrative that is anchored by our biases. So it is a lot easier for other people to see the faults or the mistake that we have done in our own reasoning and provide us a better feedback. So what happens is when we start sharing this from a diverse group of people, they can do the heavy lifting for us. What we just have to do is sit there, analyze what they are saying, think about it, and improve as we go. So by doing that, we are not doing the heavy lifting. We are just doing our job of sharing all the detail with them. But in turn, they will give their feedback and we just have to process it in our own way and come up with a better bet the next time. And that process in turn will help us come up with a more objective view of the world. Fifth takeaway is be a data sharer because that's what the experts do. We all are naturally reluctant to share information that could encourage others to find fault in our decision making. But if you want to become expert of something, then we should start sharing the data because that is the best way to move towards accuracy. The key lesson shared in here is that there are several ways to communicate and maximize our ability to seek truth. So when it comes to communication, we should always lead with uncertainty, assent, and a little bit focus on the future. And sometimes, no matter how well we communicate, we always tend to form some sort of a negative or a positive opinion about the person who is delivering the message. And these both are bad. And we can improve this by becoming outcome blind. Now, what is outcome blind? So this is essentially when we are blind to the outcome so that we can produce higher quality evaluation of the decision. And we can apply this idea of outcome blindness to the way we communicate the information to friends or any peer group that we might have. And according to the author, the best way to do that is to seek advice without revealing any sort of outcome of that bet. So imagine the scenario when we are discussing anything with your friend or your colleague. You can ask for their advice, but you can never reveal the outcome of that particular thing that you are asking for. So imagine this, when next time when you are communicating with your friends or your colleague, you can ask for their advice, but in turn, when they ask for an outcome, you can say, this is still in progress. I'm just asking you for your advice so that I can evaluate my efforts. And according to author, we should make it a habit to seek advice without revealing any sorts of outcome. Now, this strategy works best when you are trying to implement this with your friends or the people that you know. And what if you want to try this out with the people you don't know, or you're trying to find it out with outside people? So what should you do? So the author suggests 3 things that you can do. So according to the research that is done, people are more willing to offer their opinion when the goal is to win a bet, participate in an organized skepticism, or focus on the future. So there are these 3 things. By doing that, you can communicate the information to the outside world. So imagine this, you have a product and you want to get some feedback on it. So what you can do is you can post it online and you can ask people what are the things that can go wrong with this idea. So by doing that, not only you are participating in an organized skepticism, you are also allowing the people whom outside of your peer group to focus on a future that is combined vision by you and them. So next time, try this out, and this definitely works when you're trying to communicate beyond your friends or family group. The 6th takeaway is mental time travel and mapping future. In real life decision making, when we bring our past or future self into the equation, this helps present us make better bets. Our capacity for mental travel makes this thing possible. The key idea shared in here is that just as we can recruit other people to be our decision buddy, we can also recruit other versions of ourselves. Present us always needs our help, and past us and future us can be the best decision buddy that we will have. And according to author, we can utilize these 3 strategies to introduce our past and future self to the decision making process. So according to the author, regret is one of the most intense emotions that a human being can feel. So next time what we can try to do is we can try to move the regret in front of our decision making, and we can see how it unfolds our decision and how it changes from what we were about to take to what we are taking right now. The second point is working backwards from a positive or a negative future, and this is also called as scenario planning. So consider it like this, that you imagine a positive scenario, which is a positive future, and then you consider a second scenario, which is a negative future. Now, as humans, what we can try to do is we can try to work backwards from a positive and a negative future and try to evaluate our decision based on that point of view. So that is working backwards from a scenario planning point of view. The third point is decision sphere jar, or visualizing our behavior patterns. So the way it works is whenever you swear something, you put $1 in the jar. So instead of doing that, what we can try to do is we can try to find out those patterns that we are continuously repeating, and based on that, we are hampering our decision making process. So next time, whenever we make that behavior a repeat pattern, we can try to put something in that jar. So just by doing that, we will be able to visualize how many times we are committing that pattern, and hopefully in the future we should try to remove that, or at least lessen the number of behaviors pattern that we are repeating. So that's the decision sphere jar, by visualizing our behavior patterns and improving on that. Now we have come to the end of this book, and I want you to leave with the 3 most important ideas those were shared in this book. So no matter what we do, it's still a bet after all. So the most important point number 1 is don't be an outcome junkie, because none of us is guaranteed a favorable outcome. The idea number 2 is future is unsure and we don't have to be right each and every time. The point number 3 is take satisfaction in assessing the probabilities of different outcomes. Whenever we are making a bet, what we are doing is we are predicting the number of possible futures that can happen in the future. And based on our knowledge, we are betting that 1 or 2 of them might go through. And when these events happen, sometimes they might go our way, sometimes they do not. But whatever happens, we can take those learning back and improve our beliefs and in turn our bets the next time. And that is the most important information shared in this book, is how can we use this learning loop to improve our bet and improve our decision-making process in the future. Now, I hope you have enjoyed the review of this book. If you have any suggestion, please drop them down in the comments below. And thanks for watching.